The day I had dreamed of since I was a little girl was finally here. I was marrying the love of my life, Ethan. He was everything I had ever wanted, kind, supportive, and my best friend. Yet, as I stood in front of the mirror in my white dress, a pit of sadness weighed heavy in my chest. My parents weren't coming. Growing up, I always knew I wasn't the favorite. My older sister, Clara, and my younger sister, Lily, were the stars in my parents' eyes. Clara was the overachiever, the golden child who excelled in academics, sports, and social life. Lily, the baby of the family, was sweet, charming, and effortlessly adored by everyone. Then there was me, the middle child, never quite perfect enough, always falling somewhere in the shadows. I learned to accept it over the years, focusing on my own happiness instead of trying to measure up to Clara and Lily. But nothing prepared me for how my parents' favoritism would overshadow my wedding day. When Ethan proposed, I was overjoyed. We had been together for 5 years, and I couldn't wait to start our life together. I called my parents immediately, expecting them to share my excitement. Instead, I was met with hesitation. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" my mom asked. "It feels a bit rushed," my dad added. "What's the hurry?" I assured them that Ethan and I were ready, that we had thought this through, but their lukewarm reaction stung. Then came the bombshell. "You know Clara and Lily haven't married yet," Mom said. "Don't you think it's unfair to get married before them?" I was stunned. "What does that have to do with anything? This is about Ethan and me." "It's just unconventional," Dad chimed in. "Clara's been dating Josh for years. It's only a matter of time before they get engaged. And Lily, well, she's still young, but she deserves her moment too." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So what? I'm supposed to put my life on hold until they decide to get married?" "We're not saying that," Mom replied, though her tone suggested otherwise. "We just think you should consider how this might make them feel." Despite their objections, Ethan and I moved forward with our plans. We set a date, chose a venue, and began sending out invitations. When my parents received theirs, they called me again. "We've decided we're not coming," Mom said bluntly.
"What?"
I asked, my voice trembling. "It wouldn't be right," Dad said. "Clara and Lily deserve their moment first. It feels wrong to celebrate your wedding before theirs." I was heartbroken. My own parents were refusing to come to my wedding because of some unspoken rule about birth order and marriage. They weren't even giving me the chance to prove that my happiness didn't take away from Clara's or Lily's. When I told Ethan, he was furious. "You don't deserve this," he said, pulling me into a hug. "We'll have the wedding we want, with the people who actually care about us." As the wedding day approached, I tried to push my parents' absence out of my mind. I focused on the people who were coming, my friends, Ethan's family, and even a few distant relatives who had RSVP'd with enthusiasm. Clara and Lily hadn't said much about the situation. Clara sent a brief text saying she was sorry, and Lily avoided the topic altogether. On the day of the wedding, as I walked down the aisle, I couldn't help but scan the crowd, hoping to see my parents' faces. They weren't there. Instead, I saw Ethan standing at the altar, his eyes filled with love and reassurance. It was a bittersweet moment, but I reminded myself that this day was about us, not them. The ceremony was beautiful, filled with laughter and happy tears. Ethan's parents welcomed me into their family with open arms, treating me like the daughter they never had. It was everything I had hoped for, except for the empty seats where my parents should have been. At the reception, as I danced with Ethan, I caught Clara standing off to the side, watching me with an unreadable expression. I excused myself and approached her. "Hey," I said softly. "I didn't think you'd come." She sighed. "I wasn't sure if I should." Mom and Dad were pretty upset. "Upset about what?" "That I'm happy." "No," she said quickly. "It's just they've always had this idea of how things should go. I think they were worried about me and Lily feeling overshadowed." "And do you?" I asked, my voice breaking. Clara hesitated.
"No."
"Honestly, I'm happy for you. Josh and I aren't ready yet, and that's okay. You shouldn't have to wait for us to figure things out." Her words brought tears to my eyes. I wish Mom and Dad could see it that way. I'll talk to them, she promised. They love you, even if they don't always show it the right way. Later that night, Lily pulled me aside. I'm sorry I didn't say anything sooner, she said, her eyes filled with guilt. I didn't know how to stand up to them. It's okay, I said, hugging her. It's not your fault. In the weeks after the wedding, Clara and Lily kept their word. They spoke to our parents, urging them to apologize and mend things with me. It wasn't immediate, but eventually my mom called. I'm sorry, she said, her voice heavy with regret. We should have been there. We let our expectations get in the way of your happiness. It hurt, I admitted, but I want to move forward. I want us to be a family again. From that point on, things slowly began to heal. My parents never fully explained their actions, but they made an effort to be more supportive of me and Ethan. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Looking back, I realized that my wedding wasn't just about celebrating love. It was about standing up for myself and my happiness. My parents' absence taught me that I couldn't live my life waiting for their approval. I had to choose my own path, even if it meant leaving some people behind. The weekend at my boyfriend James's family cabin was supposed to be a relaxing getaway. I had been looking forward to it for weeks, a chance to connect with his family and build stronger bonds. But as it turned out, the trip revealed more about his family dynamics than I ever could have anticipated. The cabin was a sprawling, rustic retreat nestled in the woods, with enough rooms to accommodate everyone: James, his mom Diane, his younger sister Lily, and me. Diane had always emphasized a first come, first serve rule when it came to the bedrooms. It was meant to be fair. Whoever arrived first got to choose their room. James and I left early Friday morning, eager to beat traffic and secure one of the larger bedrooms with an ensuite bathroom. When we arrived, I couldn't help but smile as I placed my bag in the room we'd chosen. It was cozy and perfect, with a view of the lake. A couple of hours later, Diane and Lily arrived. Diane greeted us warmly, but Lily barely acknowledged me, brushing past as she headed toward the bedrooms. I didn't think much of it. Lily was often aloof, but when I went back to our room, I found her standing there, unpacking her things. Lily, I said, trying to keep my tone light, James and I already claimed this room. We got here first. She looked at me, unbothered. Mom said I could have it, she replied, her voice sharp. My stomach sank. But the rule is first come, first serve, right? We got here first. Without another word, she brushed past me and walked out. I stood there, stunned, trying to process what had just happened. A few moments later, Diane appeared in the doorway. What's going on? I asked, trying to remain calm. Oh, it's not a big deal, Diane said with a dismissive wave. Lily prefers this room, so I told her she could have it. But James and I got here first, I said, my voice trembling with frustration. Isn't that the rules? Diane smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Well, sometimes we have to make exceptions. Lily's younger, and she's had a stressful week. I'm sure you and James can manage in another room. It wasn't about the room anymore. It was about the principle, the blatant favoritism Diane was showing toward Lily. I looked at James, hoping he would step in, but he simply shrugged, avoiding my gaze. Feeling a mix of hurt and anger, I walked out of the room and onto the porch. The crisp air did little to calm me down. Why was it so easy for Diane to dismiss us? Why was Lily always treated like she was more important? Later that evening, at dinner, the tension was palpable. Diane and Lily chatted and laughed while James and I ate in silence. Finally, I couldn't hold it in any longer. Diane, I said, setting my fork down, can we talk about what happened earlier? She looked up, surprised. Of course, dear. What's on your mind? I just feel like the first come, first serve rule wasn't followed fairly today, I said, choosing my words carefully. James and I got here first, but Lily was given the room we chose. It feels unfair. Diane's smile faded, replaced by a tight-lipped expression. I don't think it's unfair, she said. Lily needed that room more. With all due respect, I said, my voice steady, it seems like Lily often gets preferential treatment. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. The room fell silent. Lily stared at me, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, while James shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Diane's face hardened. I don't appreciate being accused of favoritism, she said, her tone cold. I'm not trying to accuse you, I said, my heart pounding. I'm just pointing out a pattern. It feels like Lily's needs always come first, no matter the situation. Diane stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. I've done nothing but try to make everyone comfortable. If you're unhappy with how I handle things, maybe this isn't the right place for you. Her words stung, but I held my ground. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I care about this family and I care about James. But I also believe that fairness matters, and it's hard to feel like an equal part of this family when that fairness isn't there. James finally spoke up. Mom, she's not wrong, he said quietly. This happens a lot. It's not fair to her, and it's not fair to me either. Diane looked at him, shocked. James, you're siding with hers? I'm not siding with anyone, he said, his voice firm. I'm just saying that she has a point. If we're going to have rules, we should all follow them. The rest of the weekend was tense. Diane avoided me, Lily barely spoke to me, and even James seemed unsure of how to navigate the situation. When we left the cabin, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Back at home, James and I talked about what had happened. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself, he said, taking my hand. My mom's been like that with Lily for as long as I can remember. I've just never called her out on it before. I didn't mean to make things uncomfortable, I said. But I couldn't stay silent anymore. It felt wrong. You did the right thing, he said. Maybe it'll make her think twice next time. In the weeks that followed, Diane reached out to James, but never addressed the confrontation directly. Lily remained distant, but I tried to give her space, hoping that time would heal any lingering resentment. It wasn't easy, but I learned an important lesson that weekend. Love and family aren't always straightforward. Sometimes they require difficult conversations and uncomfortable truths. And while I didn't know if Diane would ever change, I knew I had done the right thing by standing up for myself and what I believed in. It all started with a simple weekend plan. My boyfriend, Mark, and his two kids, Ella, 8, and Lucas, 6, were coming over to spend the day at my apartment. I'd always wanted to bond with his children, hoping to make our growing relationship feel more like a family. But I didn't realize how quickly things would spiral out of control. Mark had always been a laid-back father, and while that was one of the things I admired about him, it often meant his parenting style clashed with my preference for structure. That day, as soon as they walked through the door, the kids were buzzing with energy. They ran straight into the living room, tossing their shoes on the floor and their bags on the couch. Hey, guys, let's put those things away neatly, I said with a smile, trying to set the tone. Ella looked at me and shrugged, and Lucas ignored me entirely. Mark chuckled. They're just excited. Let them be kids, he said, plopping down on the couch. The chaos began almost immediately. Lucas started jumping on the couch while Ella ran to the kitchen and began pulling out snacks without asking. I glanced at Mark, expecting him to step in, but instead, he smiled and said, All right, kids, go nuts. Have fun. I froze. Go nuts. In my apartment? My small, carefully maintained space that I had spent hours cleaning for their visit? Before I could react, Lucas had knocked over a lamp, and Ella had spilled chips all over the floor. My heart raced as I tried to contain my frustration. Mark, I said, keeping my voice calm, can we set some boundaries? This is my home. Mark waved me off. Relax, it's just stuff. They're having fun. I bit my tongue, trying to keep the peace, but things only got worse. Lucas grabbed a marker and started drawing on the wall. Ella decided it would be fun to chase him around the apartment, knocking over a stack of books in the process. Okay, that's enough, I said, louder than I intended. I turned to Mark. This is getting out of hand. Can you please help me calm them down? Mark leaned back, crossing his arms. You're overreacting. They're just kids. Let them express themselves. Something inside me snapped. I had tried to be patient, but Mark's dismissive attitude felt like a slap in the face. If you won't set boundaries, I will, I said firmly. I walked over to the kids and gently but firmly told them, "We're going outside. Let's burn off some energy at the park." They groaned, but eventually followed me to the door. I grabbed a soccer ball and led them out, hoping the fresh air would do them good. When I came back inside to grab my jacket, Mark was fuming. "You had no right to put them out like that," he said, his voice cold. "I didn't put them out," I shot back. "I took them to the park because they were destroying my apartment, and you weren't doing anything to stop it." "They're my kids," he said, his tone accusatory. "It's my job to decide how to handle them. And this is my home," I replied, my voice trembling. "You told them to go nuts without considering how it affects me." "That's not fair, Mark." The argument escalated, and by the end of it, Mark packed up the kids and left. As the door closed behind them, I sank onto the couch, overwhelmed with a mix of anger, guilt, and sadness. I spent the rest of the evening replaying the events in my head, wondering if I had crossed a line. Should I have been more lenient? Was I too controlling? Or was Mark being unreasonable by letting his kids run wild in my home? A few days later, Mark and I sat down to talk. "I'm sorry if I overstepped," I began, my voice soft. "I just felt like I had no choice. Your kids are wonderful, but there have to be boundaries, especially in my home." Mark sighed, his expression a mix of frustration and understanding. "I guess I didn't think about how it would feel for you. I just wanted them to have fun." "And I want that too," I said. "But fun doesn't have to mean chaos. I need to feel respected in my own space." We talked for hours, working through our frustrations and finding common ground. Mark agreed to be more mindful of setting limits with the kids, and I promised to be more flexible and patient. It wasn't easy, but it was a start. Relationships, I realized, are about compromise and communication, even when things get messy. That day taught me an important lesson about love, boundaries, and the challenges of blending lives. While I wasn't sure if I was entirely in the right, I knew one thing for certain: respecting each other's space and feelings was the only way forward.